The big spaceship called Celestial Dawn moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Inside the ship, hundreds of different aliens sat in comfortable chairs and talked quietly. The first-class dining room was the nicest part of the ship. It had shiny floors and soft lights that made everything look expensive. 3 types of aliens filled most of the tables. The Zephyrians looked like they were made of clear crystal. Light passed through their bodies in pretty colors. They spoke in voices that sounded like music. The Canthari had tough skin covered in small scales like fish. Their eyes were big and yellow. They liked to talk about money and business. The Melodians were the strangest looking. They had long arms that moved like snakes and no solid shape to their bodies. All these aliens thought they were much better than other creatures in the galaxy. They wore expensive clothes and ate fancy food. They talked about art and culture, and how smart their people were. None of them had ever seen real danger or hard times. Jake Morrison walked into the dining room. He was human, which meant he looked different from everyone else. He was not very tall, but had strong shoulders. His military uniform was old and faded. There were small holes in the fabric and stains that would not wash out. The uniform showed he was a soldier for Earth's army, but it looked like he had worn it for many years. Jake's face was tired. He had lines around his eyes that came from squinting in bright sunlight. His hands were rough and had small scars. He carried himself like someone who had seen many bad things, but kept going anyway. His boots made quiet sounds on the shiny floor. As he walked to the front desk, behind the desk stood Valandra, a Zephyrian female who worked as the hostess. Her crystal body sparkled in the light. She wore a uniform that cost more than most people made in a month. When she saw Jake coming toward her, her musical voice became cold and unfriendly. "Stop right there," she said without looking up from her computer screen. "This area is only for first-class passengers. You need to go to the back of the ship, where the cheap seats are." Jake stopped walking and reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small piece of plastic that had writing on it. "I have a first-class ticket," he said in a quiet voice. His words were polite but tired, like he had heard this before. Valandra finally looked at him. Her crystal eyes showed disgust as she looked at his old uniform and worn boots. "That cannot be right," she said. "Humans from the outer colonies do not travel first class. There must be some mistake with the computer system." She took the ticket from Jake's hand and held it up to the light. Her crystal fingers turned different colors as she became more angry. The ticket was real, and it clearly said first class. But she did not want to believe it. "Where did you steal this?" she asked in a loud voice. Her musical tone became sharp and ugly. "Did you find it on the floor somewhere?" Other aliens in the dining room stopped talking and looked over at them. A Canthari businessman named Zektar put down his drink and walked closer. His yellow eyes looked at Jake like he was something dirty. "What is this creature doing in here?" Zektar asked. His voice was rough like rocks grinding together. "Humans belong in the cargo hold with the animals, not in civilized company." A table full of Melodian nobles started whispering to each other. Their snake-like arms moved as they talked. One of them, a female named Lysara, spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "I heard that Earth is one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy," she said. "The humans who live there are violent and stupid. They fight wars all the time and destroy everything they touch." "That is right," said another Melodian. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. Only primitive creatures can survive there. They have no culture or art or music. They only know how to hurt things." More aliens gathered around to watch. A group of young Zephyrians giggled and pointed at Jake's old uniform. An elderly Canthari shook his head and made clicking sounds with his mouth to show he was upset. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," the old Canthari said. When they started letting Deathworld species travel on our ships, I knew there would be problems. Next thing you know, they will want to eat at our tables and sleep in our beds." Jake stood quietly and listened to all of this. His face did not change expression. He had heard these words many times before, but inside he felt tired and sad. Not angry, just tired of people judging him before they knew anything about him. "Sir," he said to Valandra, keeping his voice calm and respectful, "my ticket is real. I paid for it honestly. I just want to sit down and eat a quiet meal." Valandra looked at the ticket again. She could not find anything wrong with it, but she did not care. "I do not care if your ticket is real," she said. "You do not belong here. You will make our other guests uncomfortable. You should go to the economy section where you can be with your own kind." "Yes," agreed Zektar. "We cannot have a Deathworld savage eating near civilized beings. What if he becomes violent? What if he attacks someone? Everyone knows humans cannot control themselves." The crowd of aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. They all seemed to think Jake was dangerous just because he was human. None of them had ever met a human before, but they believed all the stories they had heard. Jake looked around at all the faces staring at him. He saw fear and disgust, anger, but he also saw something else in a few of the younger aliens. Some of them looked uncomfortable with what was happening. They did not seem to agree with the older ones, but they were too afraid to speak up. "I understand," Jake said finally. He put his ticket back in his pocket and turned to walk away. "I will go to the economy section. I am sorry for bothering you." As he walked away, he heard the aliens talking behind him. They were congratulating themselves for keeping their dining room pure and safe. They talked about how smart they were and how they had protected their children from the dangerous human. Jake walked through the hallways of the ship toward the back where the economy seats were. His boots made the same quiet sounds on the floor, but now he was walking away from the fancy lights and expensive furniture. He was going to a place where he would be welcome, even if it was not as nice. Behind him, the aliens went back to their tables and continued their conversations about art and culture and how much better they were than everyone else. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Jake walked into the economy section and found a very different world. The seats were smaller and closer together. The lights were not as bright, and the floor was made of plain metal instead of shiny stone. But when the humans sitting there saw him coming, they smiled and waved. "Come sit with us, soldier," called out an older woman with gray hair. Her name was Martha Phillips, and she had kind eyes. "We saved you a spot right here." Jake sat down next to Martha and looked around. There were about 30 humans in this section. Some were families with small children. Others were workers going to new jobs on distant planets. A few were old people visiting relatives. They all looked happy to see him. "Do not let those crystal heads bother you," said a young man named Pete Rogers. He was a mechanic with oil stains on his clothes. "They think they are so much better than us, but wait until something breaks down. Then they come running to humans to fix it." Martha opened a small bag and pulled out sandwiches wrapped in paper. "I made these myself," she said, offering one to Jake. "Real Earth food, not that fancy alien stuff they serve up front." Jake took the sandwich and smiled for the first time since boarding the ship. "Thank you, ma'am. That is very kind of you." "We take care of each other back here," said an older man named Bob Chun. He was a farmer who grew food on a colony world. "Those aliens up front, they do not understand what family means. They only care about money and showing off." As Jake ate his sandwich, he listened to the humans talk. They told stories about their lives and their work. They shared pictures of their children and grandchildren. They helped each other with small problems and made sure everyone had enough food and water. You know what I heard? Said a woman named Lisa Grant. She worked as a teacher on a space station. I heard that some of those Zephyrians have never even worked a day in their lives. They just sit around making art, while machines do everything for them. That explains a lot, laughed Pete. No wonder they think we are primitive. They have never had to fix anything with their own hands. Meanwhile, back in the first-class dining room, the aliens were still talking about humans. But their conversation was getting more detailed and more ugly. I read a report about Earth, said Zektar, the Canthery businessman. The planet is covered in water that can kill you. They have storms that can destroy entire cities. The animals. There are huge and have sharp teeth. How can any intelligent creature live in such a place? That is exactly my point, said Lysara, the Melodian noble. Only savage creatures can survive on a Deathworld. The constant danger makes them violent and unpredictable. They cannot help themselves. A young Zephyrian named Kyleth looked uncomfortable. I heard some different stories, he said quietly. My cousin works at a military base, and he said human soldiers are very good at their jobs. He said they saved a lot of lives during the war in the Vega system. The older aliens laughed at him. Those are just stories to make humans feel better. About themselves, said an elderly Melodian named Torith. Everyone knows the real fighting was done by proper civilized forces. Humans probably just carried supplies or dug holes. Yes, agreed Valandra. Humans are useful for manual labor, but they do not have the intelligence for real military strategy. Their tiny brains can only think about fighting and eating. Kyleth wanted to argue, but he was young and the older aliens were important people. He stayed quiet and listened to them continue talking. On my homeworld, said Zektar, we have not had a war in over 300 years. We solve all our problems with discussion and trade agreements. We are evolved beyond the need for violence. The same with us, said Lysara. Melodian society is built on art and philosophy. We create beautiful music and poetry. We would never lower ourselves to the level of physical conflict. Zephyrians are the most peaceful of all, added Valandra. Our crystal bodies cannot even hold weapons properly. We are beings of pure thought and energy. Back in economy class, Jake was helping a family with young children. Their food had spoiled during the journey, and the children were hungry and crying. Jake gave them his own meal and went to find more food from other passengers. Here, said Martha, giving him her extra sandwiches. Those babies need to eat. I have some fruit, offered Bob Chun. And I have crackers, said Lisa. Within minutes, Jake had collected enough food to feed the whole family. The parents tried to thank him, but he just smiled and said it was no problem. Later, an old man named Harry Walsh could not get his seat to recline so he could sleep. The mechanism was broken and stuck. Jake looked at it for a few minutes, then used his pocket knife to fix the problem. How did you know how to do that? Asked Harry. You learn to fix things when you are in the military, Jake said. Sometimes your life depends on making broken equipment work again. A woman named Carol Davis had trouble lifting her heavy bag into the storage area above her seat. Jake helped her without being asked. When a child dropped his toy and it rolled. Under several seats, Jake crawled on the floor to get it back. Through all of this, some of the first-class aliens walked through the economy section to get to other parts of the ship. They saw Jake helping people and working to make everyone comfortable, but they did not really see what he was doing. They just saw a human in an old uniform and assumed he was causing trouble. Look at that, whispered a young Canthery to his friend. The Deathworld creature is bothering everyone. Someone should tell him to sit down and be quiet. Humans do not understand proper behavior, replied his friend. They think they can just do whatever they want. But the young Zephyrian named Kyleth watched more carefully. He saw Jake fixing things and helping people. He saw the other humans treating Jake with respect and gratitude. He began to wonder if the older aliens were wrong about humans. That night, as the ship traveled through space, two very different groups went to sleep. In first class, the aliens dreamed of their superior culture and advanced civilization. In economy class, the humans shared blankets and made sure everyone was warm and safe. Jake lay awake for a while, thinking about his long journey and where he was going. He did not know that tomorrow would change everything. Jake woke up when the ship started shaking. At first, it was just a small tremor, like when someone walks too heavily on a wooden floor. But then the shaking got worse. The lights flickered and went out for a few seconds. Emergency lights came on and bathed everything in red color. Other passengers started waking up and looking around with confusion. The ship made a loud groaning sound, like metal being bent. Then came a sound that made everyone's blood turn cold. It was the sound of something breaking deep inside the ship. "Everyone stay calm," came a captain's voice over the speaker system. But his voice did not sound calm at all. "We are having some technical problems. Please remain in your seats." But staying calm was hard when the ship suddenly dropped like a stone. People who were not wearing their safety belts flew up and hit the ceiling. Bags and loose items crashed around the cabin. Someone screamed. Then someone else screamed louder. The ship spun sideways, and everyone was thrown against the walls. The metal groaned again, even louder this time. Through the small windows, Jake could see stars spinning past in a crazy dance. The ship was out of control. "This is Captain Telquan speaking," a voice came again. This time the captain sounded scared. "We have suffered a critical system failure. Our engines are not working and our navigation is broken. We are going to make an emergency landing on the nearest planet. Please prepare for impact. Emergency landing." Those words made everyone go silent for a moment. Then the panic started. In the first-class section, the aliens began shouting and demanding answers. Valandra ran between the tables trying to calm people down, but she was shaking too much to help anyone. "This cannot be happening," yelled Zektar. "I paid good money for this trip. The ship is supposed to be safe." "Where are we landing?" demanded Lysara. "What kind of planet is it? Is it civilized?" But Captain Telquan's next words made everything worse. "We are approaching Kepler 442b. It is an uncharted world. We do not know what conditions we will find there." Uncharted meant nobody had ever been there before. Nobody knew if the air was safe to breathe or if there were dangerous animals. Nobody knew anything, while the aliens in first class screamed and argued. Jake was already moving. He unbuckled his safety belt and stood up, holding on to the seats to keep his balance as the ship shook. "Everyone listen to me," he said to the humans around him. His voice was calm and strong. "We need to get ready for a crash landing. Take off anything sharp like jewelry or belt buckles. Put on any extra clothes you have to protect yourself. Help the children and old people." Martha Phillips looked at him with trust in her eyes. "What should we do, Jake?" "Follow my instructions and stay together," he said. "We are going to be okay, but we need to work as a team." Jake moved through the economy section, helping people prepare. He showed them how to brace for impact and where to put their hands to protect their heads. He made sure the children were secure, and the older passengers had help. The ship hit the planet's atmosphere and started to burn. Through the windows, they could see fire streaming past. The ship shook so hard that it felt like it might break apart in the air. "Hold on," Jake shouted over the noise. "This is the worst part. It will be over soon." The ship crashed through trees and bounced off rocks. Metal screamed against stone. Windows broke and pieces of the ship flew off. The lights went out completely and everything was dark except for the fires outside. Then came the final impact. The ship hit the ground so hard that everyone was thrown forward. The sound was like thunder and breaking glass and screaming metal all at once. Then everything went quiet, except for the sound of small fires crackling. Jake was the first to move. He had a cut on his forehead, and his shoulder hurt, but he could still walk. Around him, people were groaning and trying to sit up. "Is everyone alive?" he called out. Slowly, voices answered him. Most of the humans were hurt, but alive. A few had broken bones and needed help. Martha Phillips had a bad cut on her arm, but she was already trying to help others. Jake made his way toward the front of the ship to check on the first-class passengers. What he found, there was chaos. The aliens were crying and screaming. Some were hurt badly. Others were just scared and did not know what to do. Valandra was trapped under a falling piece of ceiling. Her crystal body was cracked, and she was making high-pitched sounds of pain. Zektar was trying to use his communicator to call for help, but it was broken. "The hull is breached," Jake said after looking around. "We have holes in the ship, and the air is coming in from outside." Through the holes, they could see an alien forest. The trees were tall and purple with silver leaves. Strange sounds came from the darkness between the trees. Howls and clicks and noises that no Earth animal had ever made. Jake found a working scanner and looked at the readings. "The air is safe to breathe," he announced. "But there are large life forms moving out there. We are not alone on this planet." Captain Telquan was hurt, but still alive. "I sent a distress signal before we crashed," he said weakly. "But rescue ships will take at least 3 days to reach us. Maybe longer. 3 days on an unknown planet with unknown dangers. 3 days with limited food and water. 3 days with a broken ship and injured people." But Jake was already making plans. While the aliens cried and complained, he was thinking about survival. He had been in bad situations before. He knew what needed to be done. "We need to secure the area around the ship," he said to himself. "We need to find water and food. We need to take care of the injured. And we need to be ready to defend ourselves." Outside in the purple forest, something large moved between the trees. Yellow eyes watched the crashed ship with hunger. The real test was about to begin. While the aliens sat around feeling sorry for themselves, Jake got to work. He moved through the broken ship like he had done this many times before. His hands were steady, and his voice was calm as he organized everything that needed to be done. "Pete, Bob, come help me," he called to the human men. "We need to seal these holes in the ship before nightfall. Lisa, Martha, can you help the injured people? Carol, see if you can find any medical supplies." The humans responded immediately. They trusted Jake and could see he knew what he was doing. Within an hour, they had started fixing the worst damage to the ship. They used pieces of metal and cloth to cover the holes. They gathered all the food and water they could find and put it in one safe place, but the aliens just watched. They seemed unable to understand that they needed to work to survive. Zektar kept trying to use his broken communicator. The Melodians sat in a group and complained about how uncomfortable everything was. The Shefferians worried that the rough conditions would damage their crystal bodies. Jake ignored their complaints and kept working. He took apart broken equipment and used the pieces to make new tools. He found wire and metal rods and started building something that looked like weapons. "What is that human doing?" asked Torith, the old Melodian. "Is he making weapons? I told you they were violent creatures." But young Kyleth was watching more carefully. "I think he is trying to protect us," he said quietly. "Look how he positions those metal pieces. He is making a barrier around the ship." Jake had indeed created a defensive perimeter. He used broken parts from the ship to build a fence-like structure around their crash site. He left openings that could be closed quickly, if needed. Everything was planned and organized like a military operation. As the sun started to set, strange sounds came from the purple forest. They were closer now, howling and growling and clicking noises that made everyone nervous. Through the trees, they could see shapes moving in the shadows. "Everyone stay inside the perimeter," Jake said. "Do not go out there alone, especially after dark." Just then, something big crashed through the trees near the ship. It looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard, but it was bigger than both. It had 6 legs and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Its eyes glowed yellow in the growing darkness. The aliens screamed and ran to hide inside the broken ship. But Jake stepped forward with one of his makeshift weapons. It was a metal rod with a sharp point that he had made from ship parts. The creature charged at him, moving faster than something that big should be able to move. Jake waited until the last second, then stepped aside and drove his weapon into. The creature's side. The beast roared and turned to attack again. Jake moved like a dancer, always staying just out of reach of the creature's claws and teeth. He used his weapon to keep the beast away from the ship where the other people were hiding. When the creature tried to go around him, Jake moved to block its path. The fight lasted only a few minutes, but it felt much longer. Finally, Jake found an opening and delivered a killing blow. The creature fell to the ground and did not move again. Inside the ship, the aliens stared in shock. They had just watched a human kill a dangerous predator with nothing but a simple weapon and his own skills. None of them could have done what Jake just did. "How did he do that?" whispered Lysara. "That creature was huge." "He moved so fast," said Zektar, "and he was not even afraid." Martha Phillips came out of the ship and walked over to where Jake was checking his weapon for damage. "That was good work, soldier," she said. "But I think there are more of them out there." She was right. More yellow eyes were watching from the forest. The dead creature's blood had attracted others. Jake could see at least 6 more beasts moving between the trees. "We need to work together," Jake said to everyone. "I cannot fight all of them alone." Young Kyleth stepped forward. "What can I do to help?" he asked. Jake looked surprised. This was the first time any alien had offered to help him. "Can you use tools?" he asked. "Yes, I am an engineer," Kyleth replied. "I build things for a living." Jake smiled and handed him some metal pieces. "Help me make more weapons. We need to be ready when they attack again." As they worked together, Kyleth asked questions about Jake's background. "Where did you learn to fight like that? Are all humans so good at combat?" Jake shook his head. "Not all humans are soldiers. I had special training." "What kind of training?" Kyleth pressed. Martha Phillips overheard the conversation. "Jake here is being modest," she said with pride in her voice. "He is not just any soldier. He is a war hero." "What does that mean?" asked Kyleth. "It means he saved a lot of lives during the bad times," Martha explained. "Jake fought in the Centauri War. He was part of a special unit that held a strategic position for 6 months, against impossible odds." Kyleth's crystal eyes grew wide. 6 months? Against how many enemies? "Thousands," said Pete Rogers, who had been listening. "My brother served in that war. He told me about Jake's unit. 300 humans held off 10,000 enemy soldiers. They saved an entire colony world." "That cannot be true," said Valandra, who had been eavesdropping from inside the ship. "Humans are not capable of such things." But as she spoke, more creatures emerged from the forest. This time there were 8 of them, and they were bigger than the first one. They surrounded the ship and began to close in. Jake picked up his weapons and stood ready. "Everyone get inside and stay down," he said. "This is going to be difficult." But Kyleth did not run. "I will help you," he said, holding one of the weapons they had made together. Jake nodded with respect. Stay behind me and follow my lead." The battle that followed changed everything the aliens thought they knew about humans. The 8 creatures moved like a pack of wolves, but they were much bigger and more dangerous. They spread out around the ship, trying to attack from all sides at once. Their yellow eyes glowed in the darkness, and their growls made the ground. Jake stood in the center of the defensive area he had built. He held 2 weapons, one in each hand. Kyleth stood behind him, nervous but determined to help. The other aliens watched from inside the broken ship, too scared to move. "When I move left, you move right," Jake told Kyleth quietly. "Keep them from getting behind me. If one gets past me, do not try to fight it. Just slow it down and call for help." The first creature charged straight at Jake. He waited until it was almost on top of him, then rolled to the side and struck with both weapons. The beast crashed into the metal barrier and roared in pain and anger. 2 more creatures attacked from different directions. Jake moved between them like he was dancing, always staying just out of reach. His weapons flashed in the dim light as he struck again and again. Every movement was perfect and planned. Kyleth watched in amazement. Jake was not just fighting. He was controlling the entire battle. He made the creatures go where he wanted them to go. He kept them confused and angry so they could not work together properly. When one creature tried to circle around to attack the ship, Jake threw one of his weapons like a spear. It hit the beast in the leg and made it fall down. Before it could get up, Jake was there with his other weapon to finish it. How does he know where they will attack next? Kyleth wondered out loud. "Experience," said Bob Chun from inside the ship. Jake has been in situations like this before. The battle went on for 20 minutes. One by one, Jake defeated the creatures. He was cut and bleeding in several places, but he never slowed down. When the last beast fell, he stood among the bodies breathing hard, but still alert. "Is everyone okay?" He called out. The aliens came out of the ship slowly. They looked at Jake with new eyes. This quiet human in the old uniform had just saved all their lives. He had fought 8 dangerous predators and won. Valandra walked up to Jake with her head down. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I was wrong about you. About all humans." "You do not need to apologize," Jake said simply. "You were just scared. People say things when they are scared." But Valandra shook her crystal head. "No, it was more than fear. It was prejudice. I judged you without knowing anything about you. That was wrong." Over the next 2 days, while they waited for rescue ships, the aliens learned more about Jake. Martha Phillips told them stories about his military service. Pete Rogers shared what he knew about the wars Jake had fought in. Jake did not just fight in the Centauri War, Martha explained. He led rescue missions to save civilians. When the enemy attacked New Geneva, Jake and his unit held them off for 2 weeks while ships evacuated the city. He saved 50,000 people. "But that is impossible," said Torith. "How could so few soldiers fight so many enemies?" "Humans are very good at fighting when they have to," said Carol Davis. "But Jake is special even among humans. He volunteers to go on the most dangerous missions. He always puts other people's safety before his own." Lisa Grant added more details. Jake was decorated 5 times for bravery. He has saved more lives than anyone can count. After the war ended, he used his own money to help the families of soldiers who died under his command. The aliens listened to these stories with growing amazement. This quiet man they had treated so badly was one of the greatest heroes in human space. Siktar approached Jake on the 2nd day. "I heard you are traveling to visit families of fallen soldiers," he said. "Is that true?" Jake nodded. "Some of my men had families on Kepler Station. I promised I would check on them. But that must cost a lot of money. Zektar said. "How do you afford first-class tickets?" "I do not buy them," Jake admitted. "The colony of New Geneva bought this ticket for me. They said it was the least they could do for someone who saved their world." Kyleth, who had become Jake's friend during the crisis, shook his head in wonder. "So you are not traveling first class to show off or feel important. You were traveling that way because an entire planet wanted to honor you." "I told them economy class was fine," Jake said, "but they insisted." When the rescue ships finally arrived, Jake organized the evacuation just like he had organized their defense. He made sure the most injured people were taken off first. He helped carry stretchers and counted heads to make sure no one was left behind. As they boarded the rescue ship, Valandra made an announcement to all the passengers. "I want everyone to know that this human saved all our lives. His name is Jake Morrison, and he is a hero. I was wrong to judge him, and I am sorry." The other aliens nodded and agreed. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. Zektar offered Jake a job with his company. "We need someone with your skills and leadership," he said. The Melodian nobles invited Jake to visit their homeworld as an honored guest. "We would like to learn more about human culture," they said. Jake thanked them all, but politely declined the offers. "I have promises to keep," he said, "families to visit, people who are counting on me." When they reached the next space station, Jake boarded another ship to continue his journey. The hostess at the gate immediately offered him a first-class seat with genuine respect and admiration. "Thank you," Jake said politely, "but I think I will sit in economy class. That is where my friends are." He walked to the back of the ship, where other humans welcomed him with warm smiles and open arms. The aliens watched him go with new understanding and respect. Word of what happened spread quickly through the galaxy. The story of the human hero who was refused a seat became famous. It changed how many alien species thought about humans forever, but Jake just continued his quiet journey, visiting families and keeping promises. To him, he had not done anything special. He had just done what needed to be done to keep people safe. That was what humans did, and that was enough.